So what's it about again?
The show's about me.
Okay.
And it follows my daily life around AU and just in general. It could be a great show. I could see it now, called Fun Never Ends with Cody Cohen.
I mean, you guys worked out a pretty good deal with my contract. I think we can definitely make something work for him too.
It's a little bit of feasibility.
What's the issue with it?
What's the issue?
What's the issue with it?
It's me!
I'm one of the stars on your program here, Vince.
You're just coming at me. You're vilifying me. How are we going to film the show?
I didn't think.
Well, you know what we're filming right now.
This is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is Studio 90. I'm joined by Vikram. As we mentioned last week on Studio 90, it was a Champions League week, so those matches transpired a lot, mostly how we thought they would. But I think the biggest storyline coming from this weekend in world soccer is a team that isn't in Champions League, and it's a team in Europa League. Manchester United and Jose Mourinho's crew are now currently owners of a 3-game losing streak. Manchester City, that's kind of forgivable. The Europa League team they lost to, not forgivable. And then Watford this past weekend, they looked horrible and got outplayed. So Vikram, I'm just going to ask you quite simply. This is a Studio 90 question that Ryan's going to be glad I'm asking. What's the deal with Manchester United?
Everything. I think the midfield is completely off. Pogba playing in the same position with Fellaini is not working, and Fellaini can't be playing the whole season. He has Michael Carrick, Herrera, Schweinsteiger on the bench. Schweinsteiger is not good to him apparently, but Fellaini and Pogba are not the answer, and the midfield is a joke. And if they don't work towards that, Man U is going to lose many more games.
Definitely. I feel for Marcus Rashford. He's
Yeah.
an enormous talent, and he's just kind of suffering there. And then also to pile on, I think I saw Luke Shaw, their left back, is going to be out the next 3 to 4 weeks, so the defense, even more shambles.
Also, the concern is Rooney. He didn't play well at all against Watford, and Zlatan is not getting the service he needs. So they are in a big trouble unless Jose does something really special.
Which, I mean,
Yeah.
he does call himself the special one, but he's looking a little bit average and mediocre at the moment and really struggling, as you said, tactically. On the noisy neighbors in Manchester, however, in Manchester City, are not struggling at all, and Pep Guardiola has that machine humming beautifully. They beat Bournemouth to the tune of 4-0 this weekend and got new boy Ilkay Gundogan in the scoring action. So, Vikram, do you see this Manchester City train just keep trending upward?
Yeah, I am not a City fan, but I saw the whole game and they just look brilliant. There's no flaw. The strikers are doing well. Without Aguero, the midfield is amazing. De Bruyne is playing. He's the best player till now in the Premier League, and his passes, the defense is working together. I think Man City is the title contenders this year for sure.
Definitely, and this could be the long wait is over for an English team to finally contend in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And I think what Pep Guardiola has done with John Stones, he is playing phenomenal. That back line is looking significantly better, and Vincent Kompany's still hurt, so when he comes back, you could expect them only to get better.
Yes, and also Pep said that he will not get a place just because he was the captain. Kolarov surprisingly has been playing well.
Right.
He himself has been passing the ball really well. He just took that position really well, Kolarov. So I don't know if Kompany is going to get the game straight away.
Definitely. And the other team who has a new coach in England, Chelsea with Antonio Conte, they started off the season pretty well. Diego Costa getting all the goals for them. They've kind of struggled these past couple weeks. A draw and now a loss to Liverpool last Friday night. Do you see he's tactically brought in David Luiz, which made me believe they maybe are going to a 3-back in the defensive lineup, but they played 4 in the back against Liverpool and they really got torn to shreds. So
There was something off against Liverpool because Chelsea had been playing well before that game, and Conte defensively is supposed to be a really, really good manager, and the defense was just off that day. And I don't think Luis is a Conte player. I don't know, this was a panic buy for sure because Luis is not a Conte player. And you could see that although he did well, Cahill was the flaw in that game, and they're missing Terry. And they need Terry and Zuma back fit, otherwise they're going to have problems because that defense was really, really poor. The second half, they did show that they had they scored a goal and they did a comeback, but they need to sort stuff out. Otherwise, they also are looking really not in a good shape.
Definitely. They looked really out of sorts against Liverpool, and we'll quickly touch on Liverpool before we have to wrap up the segment. But Liverpool has kind of been an anomaly this season. They don't have Europa League to worry about, so it's all in the Premier League. They've beaten Arsenal and they've beaten Chelsea, but they've shockingly lost to Bournemouth. And I think Klopp, after that match, sent a big message by starting a really strong lineup in the EFL Cup where they trounced their opponent. Do you see this is finally the year where Liverpool can contend for a top 4 spot?
Definitely they can. Their attacking midfielders' attack is very good. The only problem with Liverpool is the defense. Even against Chelsea, second half, you could see that they could have conceded the second goal or a third. Their defense is the main problem. Other aspects are really good. So Klopp needs to figure that out. He's just an attacking manager, but he needs to figure out the defense line. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. James Milner playing left back is really kind of odd. Alberto Moreno frozen out there, and they can't bring anybody in because the transfer window is closed.
Yeah.
They have to make do with what they have until January. We have to make do with all the time they have given us. We are out of time with Studio 90, but stick around for more SportsZone after this.
Hello and welcome to the Galleon in the Gridiron, our fantasy football segment. My name is Jake Elms and I'm here with Ryan Siegel, and we are here to talk about what happened this week in fantasy football and how to help you win in week 3 and beyond. So Ryan, tell me, what is your biggest takeaway from this week in fantasy?
His biggest takeaway this week was a lot of guys underperformed, especially the number 1 player in fantasy football, Antonio Brown. He got 3 points. 3. Not like 3 points for receiving yards, 3 points because it was PPR. 3 points. 3 catches, 39 yards. It screwed over half the guys that picked number 1. My running backs also. Carlos Hyde, 2 points. Justin Forsett, 3 points. It was just a week of nobody was able to find any points or score any points.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, coming off the Thursday night game, which was high scoring for basically every player involved. I mean, Matt Forte with 3 touchdowns, B. Marsh with 100 yards, Goodwin with an 88-yard and a touchdown for, that one daily fantasy guy who's just rolling in the dough right now. But really just after a strong fantasy week for a lot of players, just overall a very sloppy week across the entire league. I mean, just from my eye test, I'm kind of watching all the 1 o'clock games at the same time while I was out. Just a lot of bizarre, miscues on special teams, snaps going over players' heads. I think this week, and it wasn't even strong defense half the time, just very sloppy play. And sloppy defensive play, too. It just didn't generate a lot of fantasy points. I mean, this week I had Andrew Luck, Todd Gurley, and Amari Cooper under 25 points. Total, standard. Just a bizarre week, but you know what? Winners move on. So let me ask you, Ryan, who's your sleeper for this coming week?
My sleeper for this coming week has to be Corey Coleman. I mean, he really kind of came out of nowhere with Cleveland. RG3 got injured. Everybody thought, oh, there goes Cleveland. Dump all your Cleveland guys. Get rid of Gary Barnidge. Get rid of all of them. Corey Coleman really emerged against the Baltimore Ravens, picking up 100 yards and a touchdown. It was really kind of interesting to see. And that was with Josh McCown having a bum shoulder. So I'm kind of excited to see how he actually performs throughout the rest of the season.
I agree with you. This was my sleeper week 1, and I'm going to stick with the guy. Travis Benjamin. He showed that, now with Danny Woodhead going out, a lot of those short kind of gadget play passing yards, a lot of those could go to Travis Benjamin. I mean, you saw one of his scores in yesterday's game came on basically just a pitch. Came on kind of a nice little shovel pass move, which is really kind of the sort of play you'd expect Danny Woodhead to have in that Chargers offense. So he's a player who, if he hasn't been picked up yet, pick him up. And also a guy to look at is Will Fuller. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about him to death, but I just can't recommend him enough. I mean, 200-something yard games in a row. Everybody knew this year he'd be able to stretch the field and take the pressure off the middle of the offense. But, the big concern with him was hands. But he hasn't really been dropping anything. I mean, he's been catching all the balls that have been coming his way, and if he's getting the balls his way and he's catching them, that means points. I mean, I guess for you, I guess if we want to talk about wide receivers, any running backs for you this week you think are worth picking up?
Running backs this week, I honestly don't know. I mean, Chanderick West had a big week for Kansas City, even though they really didn't have a big offensive week. The running backs have been really underperforming this year as a whole, as I've noticed. Adrian Peterson going down with injury, you can't blame the guy for that. But before that, he only had maybe 4 points to begin with.
On a season, I'd say.
Yeah, Eddie Lacy only had 5 points yesterday. Granted, I'm not taking anything away from the Vikings defense. They're a very good defense, but still, it's 5 points. It's not hard to get 50 yards as a running back, especially if a team runs the ball to you 20 times. The only guy that I've seen personally that has really gotten consistent points is Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, for everybody's worried, he had a not so great first year because he was a rookie. Really kind of has a meteoric rise. He's been over 15 points in both weeks this week. I would say if you have Melvin Gordon, absolutely put him in your starting lineup.
A guy who you may want to be looking up if maybe you're having an issue at running back, maybe you want some more depth. The guy who you might not be hearing about is Kenyon Drake on the Dolphins. I mean, you saw Arian Foster, as the sun rises in the night, Arian Foster got injured. Hurt his groin. It's a nasty injury. And, a lot of you may be saying, oh, this is finally the J of G time. But really, Kenyon Drake was the one who scored the touchdown. Kenyon Drake, rookie out of Alabama. They drafted in the 3rd round. A very explosive player, getting some of those nice pass catching. Catches a lot of passes. He has the ability to catch a lot of passes in the offense. If you're a PPR player, he's a guy who I think will be fairly productive in that Miami offense for the next couple of weeks. And he's a guy who's virtually unowned at all. I think he's about 0.3% in ESPN. So Kenyon Drake's a guy to look at. Anyway, from all of us here on the Galleon and the Gridiron, that's all we have for you today. Happy playing, and more SportsZone coming at you next.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. I am Dan, I've got Vince with me, and we are going to hit our first college football segment of the season. We've been a little bit short-staffed and nobody really knows how to talk college football, but Vince and I are going to give it a shot just because there's enough to talk about that it would be unfair if we didn't cover it. So we'll start with the number 1 team in the country. It is the Alabama Crimson Tide, who finally, in their 3rd year of trying, have beaten Chad Kelly and the Rebels of Ole Miss. So Vince, is this a big hurdle passed here for Alabama? Is it smooth sailing for them the rest of the way?
You never know in the SEC whether it's smooth sailing, but I think it's a big mental hurdle for them. Like you mentioned, they've lost to Ole Miss the past 2 years, but it hasn't really deterred them at all. They won the national championship last year anyway. I think this was a big bragging rights for them. The SEC's kind of backloaded. You've got Tennessee playing really well. Florida State's good. LSU maybe is pretty good. Texas A&M, I believe, cracked the top 10 this week. So there's a lot of good teams to be had on the late end of the schedule for Alabama, but they looked really strong, mounting a 21-point comeback against Ole Miss. So I think they're definitely striking a lot of fear in their opponents, and they're more than likely going to be in the college football playoff again.
Well, it's, no one's as consistent as Nick Saban in college football in Alabama. That is obvious. We will move now to the number 2 team in the country, big shakeup at number 2. Before last week, it was Florida State, but Florida State proceeded to get stomped by Louisville, so they now drop out of the top a bunch. I don't even know. Yeah. They dropped, I think, out of the top 10 down to 13. And the new number 2 team in the country, Ohio State, another kind of perennial power, but without now Cardale Jones, no Braxton Miller. JT Barrett, I believe, still there. Right. He'll be your quarterback. No Ezekiel Elliott, though. So what are your thoughts on Urban Meyer's crew from Ohio State?
I can tell you, they looked really strong against Oklahoma last week. JT Barrett, like you said, doesn't have Ezekiel Elliott to hand the ball to, doesn't have Braxton Miller playing that weird X wide receiver position when he should be playing quarterback. But they looked really strong against Oklahoma and really handled Oklahoma pretty handily. Don't know how much that means because now Oklahoma's 2 losses. They lost to Houston, they lost to Ohio State. But Oklahoma's a top 15 team, and Ohio State handled them pretty handily. And it's making it seem like the race in the Big Ten is going to be extremely difficult. And probably with a lot of easy games on the schedule, Ohio State just has Michigan and Michigan State to look out for, but those should be blockbuster football games for sure.
Well, you mentioned Michigan, led, of course, by the Khakis. Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh?
I think Jim.
Jim Harbaugh, thank you. One of them is with the Ravens. I don't know. It's confusing. They're all in football. Anywho, the Khakis in Michigan coming in this week at number 4 overall. So you talked about how that's going to be a battle with them, Ohio State and Michigan State in the Big Ten. And they've now moved into that top 5, technically into a playoff spot, although we're way too far away to be talking about that. But it's been a really quick turnaround for Harbaugh and the Wolverines.
Definitely, yeah. I think it was a bit odd. This week they definitely struggled, and Jim Harbaugh, a lot was made of his depth chart. I saw Colorado, who they played this week, kind of taunted him because he doesn't release it. He didn't really name a starter, but Wilton Spate, a Richmond, Virginia He's from Richmond. I saw him play in high school. He was very good in high school, but he's leading the way. They struggled against Colorado. I think they were down 14 after the first quarter, but then really turned it on. In the previous 2 weeks before that, I think they eclipsed 60 points. So I think it doesn't really matter if Wilton Spade or anyone else is carrying that offense. They looked pretty strong.
And really quick, we'll hit on now the number 3 team in the country. I mentioned them before. Louisville moving up to number 3 following a beatdown of the Seminoles, led by Lamar Jackson, who looks like he could score on anybody. He's turning defenses into Swiss cheese. 18 touchdowns in 3 games. He's getting Michael Vick comparisons from when Michael Vick was back at Virginia Tech. Any thoughts on a potential Heisman frontrunner?
Well, he's definitely made a case for himself, and he had one of those Heisman moments, as they always kind of talk about in a big game against Florida State, and he's putting up numbers that are even better than Michael Vick. They always talk about whether he's on track, but he's on track, I think, to have over 4,000 yards, which is pretty ridiculous for a college athlete. There's games to be had down the stretch for Louisville to see if they're going to be college football contenders, as they play Houston and they play Clemson in the back end of their schedule. But Lamar Jackson is real. His Heisman star is shining bright, certainly after this week.
That is all the time we have for this college football segment. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to keep it locked here for more Sports Zone coming up right after this.
Hello, welcome back to Sports Zone. This is Ice Time, our premier hockey segment. Big news, obviously, it's World Cup of Hockey season. The tournament started on Saturday in the Air Canada Centre in Toronto with 2 very big matchups, the United States against Europe and Canada against the Czech Republic. So let's go right with the United States-Europe. Europe came out and surprised the Americans with a 3-0 victory. The United States outshot Europe 35-17. But ultimately, Leon Draisaitl has led the European roster in points, and he continued to do so, tallying a goal and an assist, and really kind of just handed it to the United States and Jonathan Quick. The United States offense really just couldn't find the back of the net. Yaroslav Halak was impenetrable, and it really eventually led to the 3-0 win. Look out for Team Europe as they come and progress through the tournament. Going to the other half of the slate on Saturday, Canada handedly beat the Czech Republic 6-0. Canada, with probably what's deemed a more easier first game in the tournament, really handed it to them handed to the Czechs on home soil. Last night, we got to see the under-23 Team North America take on Finland, which was really a very interesting matchup. The North American team winning 4-1. Really interesting to see Jack Eichel and Connor McDavid on the same roster with guys like Shane Gostisbehere and Johnny Gaudreau. Look out for that team. They can really be something special and definitely make a strong push for the finals in this tournament. The other game, you had Sweden and Russia. Sweden without Henrik Lundqvist due to illness. Jacob Markstrom got the start, and he helped deliver the win. 2-1 Sweden over the Russians. So today, as we speak, the Finns are playing Russia. That game is tied at 0 in the second period. The game's almost halfway through. And then tonight you have Team North America and Team Sweden. Very interesting matchup. All matchups on ESPN2. But my big game to watch is tomorrow night, 8 p.m. ESPN, United States versus Team Canada. It'll be a very interesting matchup. Both of these teams met in the very first World Cup of Hockey in 1996, and it was a bloodbath. I'm looking for a lot more of the same. As we kind of preview the beginning of the NHL season, a lot of teams are really jockeying for position. Many teams believe that the San Jose Sharks in the Western Conference will once again make a strong push deep into the playoffs. And other teams in the East are far more open. You know, Pittsburgh's lost some key players. Washington lost guys like Jason Chimera and Michael Latta. So their third line is really in an interesting limbo. So it'll be very interesting to see. But my prediction still, coming out of the East, defending champs, Pittsburgh Penguins, as much as it pains me to say it, I believe Pittsburgh will once again take the East, and I feel the West can go to any number of teams. Chicago, San Jose, Dallas are probably my 3 front runners. My sleeper pick in the East for going all the way is definitely the Detroit Red Wings. They got a lot younger. They were kind of known as the Ageless Wonders for a while, but now they're back, they're younger, they're rejuvenated, and they're almost out of the Joe. So I think they're going to try to show strongly for 1 or 2 more seasons in the Joe. In the West, you always have to worry about Chicago and St. Louis. That's been a contested matchup throughout the last 5 years in the playoffs. It seems like those teams meet every year. St. Louis finally got the better of Chicago last year, and then St. Louis eventually got the better of Dallas to move on and play San Jose, where they ultimately lost. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how that all turns out in the West. But anyway, that is all the time we have for you for this segment of Ice Time. For more World Cup of Hockey news, we will be broadcasting throughout the week. But stick around for more SportsZone after this.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is going to be our baseball segment. We are getting to third base, and we are right in the thick of pennant race season, playoff season. We have our first clinch of the season, which we'll hit a little bit later in the show. But we're going to start with the 2 closest races, which seemingly has a different team up top every single day. So the fact that we only film once a week creates a bit of a problem for us, but very dynamic, lots of movement going on, both wild card races. We'll start in the National League because I've got Kristen with me as well as Vince. But as everyone knows, I'm sure at this point, Kristen and I, big Mets fans, the Mets currently have a 1-game lead over the Giants for the first National League wild card spot. As I said, the Giants in second, the Cardinals in third, just 1 game behind the Giants. So 3 teams separated by 2 games. It's super, super tight. But the Mets are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. Kristen, how have they been getting it done without Matt Harvey, without Zach Wheeler, without Jacob deGrom, without Steven Matz?
It's been so amazing to watch the Mets these last few weeks, especially in seeing deGrom going down, which has been, or so we thought it would be really devastating. They aren't feeling the effects of it just yet, although I am concerned that if they hit the postseason and then they're looking for somebody to start game 1, game 2 of that first round, that they'll definitely be missing him then. But all that matters right now is getting there, and the pitching underneath him has been able to step up. Seth Lugo, Gazelman has been pitching really well also. And Granderson's bat has been heating up a lot, which has proven to be really crucial for them down the stretch.
Yeah, all of a sudden Curtis Granderson's hitting cleanup and seems like a different player. He's got something like 5 or 6 home runs in the last 2 weeks. Hit 2, including a walk-off the other day against Minnesota. So yeah, he looks really good all of a sudden as a cleanup hitter. Hitting behind Cespedes, maybe that's the key. And you talked about the pitching. I mean, this team, there's nobody left. I mean, TJ Rivera is playing second base every day, and he's hitting .350, which is, nobody saw that coming at the beginning of the year. But you got, with no Neil Walker, you got no Wilmer Flores right now. He's the only guy left to play second base, and he's making the most of it. So we'll pivot a little bit now to the American League. Baltimore, currently the first wild card team, followed closely by Toronto, just 1 game out. 2 games behind Toronto, we have a tie. Detroit and Seattle. Seattle, a bit of a surprising name on that list. Detroit, I guess you kind of would expect them to kind of be in the hunt every year. Tiger pun intended within the hunt. So Vince, any comment? Do you think the Tigers or the Mariners have enough to make this late season push? About 16 games left. Do they have enough to make a push?
I think, and we touched on this a little bit last week, they do have a chance in the fact that the 2 teams they're chasing are in the AL East, and lots of the teams that are contending are in the AL East, and we're getting down to the end of the season, so it's mainly in division games you're playing. So those teams could pick up losses, beat up on each other, and the Tigers, who Miguel Cabrera is pretty red hot right now, their pitching's doing fairly well. Seattle, we obviously know they've got Robinson Cano and Felix Hernandez. They've got guys who, they're both talented teams that really shouldn't be this far out of the wild card race, and with the AL East teams potentially beating up on each other, they could slide in there. I could see that happening.
I think you definitely have to watch the Tigers. This is a team that's been there before. They've got a lot of veterans on that team. Justin Verlander, as we talked about, I think last week, all of a sudden an ace again. Michael Fulmer, despite a couple stumbles, ERA still 3.12, which is certainly solid. And you look at that lineup, lot of weapons, and all of a sudden Justin Upton looks like he's worth the money they're paying him after he was hitting like .250 the entire season. And of course, arguably the best player on the planet in the last 5 years, Miguel Cabrera, on the Tigers, and noteworthy here because he's, like I said, one of the best players on the planet. He's now the 4th youngest player to earn his 2,500th hit. So he's behind, Ty Cobb, Hank Aaron's, like some big Hall of Fame names. He's 33. What kind of number could we be looking at when his career is over?
I mean, I think we can definitely see him potentially breaking the 3,000 barrier. He's had a lot of production, as you said, the past couple years. He's been on a phenomenal clip. I don't think he can sustain that. You said he's 33. Maybe we can expect another 2 prime years, and maybe it'll slow down a little bit. I don't think we'll see, him kicking it when he's like 40, like Ichiro type of thing. I think he's a little bit of a bigger guy and the durability, but I think playing in the American League helps him out a little bit, as he could probably DH once he gets a little bit older. So I think he can definitely push on beyond 3,000.
Yeah, Kristen, agree 3,000 almost a given for Miguel Cabrera?
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think he's so crucial to the team, and I think that his presence is like really important, and he could potentially help them make a push for the postseason.
The one thing that's important with the Tigers and Cabrera is the health. Vince, you kind of talked about it, the durability. Him, Victor Martinez, JD Martinez, they've all kind of have, especially lower body issues. Especially Victor Martinez, who can barely run anymore because both of his knees are shot. But we'll see if the Tigers have just enough left in the tank to make a push. So we'll pivot again to, where are we going to pivot?
We could take a look at the Giants. They're kind of an interesting team. They started the season so hot, and then, as talented as they are, really tailed off after the All-Star break. They've got 3 bona fide aces in their lineup, and they've got Hunter Pence, who's on a tear right now, Buster Posey, who could be getting hot, and they just came off a series on the Cardinals, retaining that second wild card spot. I think they're kind of interesting to mention, as you guys were talking about the Mets. You really maybe don't know who's going to pitch that wild card game. With the Giants, if they get there, you do know who's going to pitch, and presumably they do well in postseason baseball. Maybe not second half of the season, but Bumgarner, Samardzija, or Cueto, those are daunting tasks for whoever lineup has to face them.
Well, it is an even year, so it should bode well for the Giants, although, as you said, a poor second half has left the door wide open for the Dodgers, who have a starting rotation that's more beat up than the Mets, actually, right now. Kershaw's back, but I don't know who else is actually pitching for them. Is Rich Hill healthy? Do we know? I don't know. Anywho, I'm being told that we're out of time. So that is all the time we have for this episode of Getting to Third Base. Playoff baseball just around the corner, so be sure to check back with us next week, and we have more SportsZone coming up.
Hello, welcome back to SportsZone. This is Going for Two, our premier NFL football segment. I'm joined alongside with Jake Elmsley, of course. And Jake, there were a lot of very intriguing matchups and a lot of very intriguing injuries that took place. What would you say your most intriguing matchup was in Week 2?
My most intriguing matchup in Week 2. Well, going into it, actually the game that I was the most interested in was Minnesota and Green Bay, closely followed by LA and Seattle, but that was more for historical significance. But really the Minnesota-Green Bay game with the new QB in town, with Sam Bradford in the brand new stadium. And Minnesota is a very sneaky team, and seeing the way that game went, seeing how Minnesota was actually able to defensively just fight back against the Packers, even with how all offseason everybody was saying that the Packers offense will be fine now that they got Jordy Nelson back. Packers offense will be fine now that they got not fat Eddie Lacy back. But to see the Minnesota defense bully them and have another strong performance just like last week against the Titans really proves that even without Teddy Bridgewater, the Vikings are a legit contender in the NFC.
I would have to agree with you. But speaking of the other game that you mentioned, the Los Angeles Rams back in LA, played in the Coliseum against what was sure to be a surefire home opening loss against the Seattle Seahawks. But Seattle barely only mustered 3 points against a not-so-great Rams defense in both of our opinions. What's going on with Seattle's offense?
See, that's tough. I mean, I will say that the last, I believe, 3 matchups, the Rams have actually been very good at specifically beating the Seahawks. But yeah, I mean, you saw it last week outside like the last half of the last quarter. Seattle's offense couldn't do anything against Miami that got torched by Jimmy Garoppolo for a half. I mean, I can't tell you what's going on. They were hyping up Thomas Rawls being back. You got the awakening of Christian Michael. You got Doug Baldwin. You got the return of Jimmy Graham. And they really, so far, they are just out of sync. And I really don't know what it is. I would assume that the key would be that they're starting basically a brand new starting offensive line. But the offensive line hasn't been awful. I mean, I really am not sure exactly what's getting them so out of sync.
Yeah, really. Honestly, nobody really knows. And I assume Pete Carroll will eventually light a fire somewhere in there, and they'll right the ship.
Yeah,
they're the Seattle Seahawks. They've written the ship before. But you mentioned another interesting point. Jimmy Garoppolo injured with a shoulder issue. Up to Jacoby Brissett now. They mentioned that they are not picking up another quarterback. Brissett's the guy. Garoppolo may dress, apparently, but they're going to have to find a way to make it and hopefully hope that Brissett's not injured. But what do you think that's going to mean for the Patriots for the next 2 weeks until Brady's back?
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, yes, like I said, I've been hearing reports out of Boston that Garoppolo will dress. The team, I mean, with it being a short week also really hurts them. I mean, they have committed to not bringing in another quarterback, not trying to sign like a Matt Flynn or, whoever, the guy from the Cardinals from 3 years ago. Just guys like that who are floating around. But yeah, I mean, you saw the first half that their offense was almost unstoppable with Garoppolo, and they went for 250 yards, 3 touchdowns in under a half. I mean, those are statistics that if you ended the game on it, you say that the guy had a strong performance. But you did see that, I mean, while they did hold on the win, you did see after Brissett came in, I believe he only completed 6 of 9 passes. And basically, they were just handing it off to Blount and just throwing screen passes and short under 5-yard passes to Edelman. I mean, they will have a few days to put in a game plan, but not even a full week. It'll be tough. But Brissett did look pretty solid in the preseason. There were some, Boston townies who were saying that, that Brissett should start over Garoppolo. He was looking so good. But he's a different sort of quarterback from Garoppolo, definitely a different sort of quarterback from Brady. So it'll be interesting to see what McDaniels and Belichick put in place. And hopefully they'll have a returning Rob Gronkowski. So they'll still have a decent chance to put on a good show against the Texans on Thursday night.
You're absolutely right. Getting Rob Gronkowski back will be huge, as well as getting Deion Lewis back within the next couple weeks. He's starting to eventually go through the procedure to get ready and get back on the field. Mm-hmm. I think it would help, especially if he came back and maybe like week 4, at least give somebody a solidified back that they should run the ball to. Then again, the Patriots and running the football, you never know who's going to get the ball. There were a couple other big matchups. San Francisco, who was kind of prided as one of the top defenses coming in so far, pretty much got handled by Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, 46-27. But another thing that you were kind of really interested about is, will Carolina rebound? And another thing is everybody's kind of worried. They lost to Denver in the rookie quarterback. They rebounded very nicely. But how do you see Carolina going throughout the year?
I mean, they lost Jonathan Stewart this week, and he's out for 1 or 2 weeks. And Jonathan Stewart health was one of those many things that I say went perfectly right for them last year. That could have easily blown up in their face. But also, you're seeing one thing that's helping them a lot is a reawakening of Kelvin Benjamin, who is playing better than he did his rookie year, has not missed a beat. I believe he had 2 touchdowns this week. I know he at least had 1. And you're seeing Cam Newton playing just as well as he's been playing. So, I mean, the team, they have a chance to continue to contend just as well as they did last year. I mean, the team, a couple of things, a lot of those things that were going right for them last year are still going right for them. They have decent protection. The defense is playing well. The front 7 is as fearsome as ever. The secondary isn't getting exposed, but they have yet to play a very good quarterback. The only 2 quarterbacks they've played been Trevor Siemian and, Blaine Gabbert. But they're looking very good so far, and there's no reason to count them out yet.
Absolutely. Now, swinging to pretty much the backyard here in D.C., the Redskins-Dallas Cowboys game. And I know you and I were both kind of annoyed with Kirk Cousins' performance because he couldn't hit an open receiver at all. I think you even mentioned before the segment started, he had Jordan Reed open 8 different times, and if you put it within Jordan Reed's reach, he's going to catch it. Can Washington move on and win the division again with this kind of performance from Cousins?
Well, I mean, you see the NFC East, I believe in the last 10 years, they haven't had 1 repeat champion, which is something to think. I mean, you have Dallas that has clearly came back. Clearly they've gotten their quarterback woes handled with Dak Prescott playing very well. You've gotten the Giants who bolstered their defense and played a very surprisingly low-scoring game against the Saints yesterday. And then also, I mean, okay, the Eagles. Don't worry about the Eagles. But the Redskins is tough. I mean, you see Kirk Cousins, who was a player who a lot of people were afraid wasn't going to be able to repeat his performance from last year. I mean, yesterday was, I believe, his first game in the last 9 regular season games with under 65% completion. He was missing wide open plays to Deshaun Jackson, to Pierre Garçon, to Jordan Reed, to Josh Dawkinson, to Jamie Crowder. Like he was having a lot of problems. He was not looking like the player he looked like last year, and that is something to worry about for the Washington Redskins team that's looking for some kind of identity.
I'd have to agree with you. Washington's definitely trying to be one of those first repeat champions in 10 years. Right now, I got to say the heavy favorite in that division is by far the New York Giants. They have been playing pretty good football throughout the first 2 weeks. I know they squeaked out with a win against Dallas, but they're not. They're looking the most consistent, and Ben McAdoo as the new coach is looking like it's going to be the right ship. But my final point before we call it the end of the segment, what's your highlight matchup of Week 3?
Oh, that's tough. There's a lot of There's a lot of less than highlight-worthy games this week. But for me, honestly, probably the most intriguing game is that Houston and Patriots matchup.
I'd have to agree with you. I think it'll be very interesting to see. And Brock Osweiler, a little bit more of an established quarterback in the league. And he's going to have DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's the first big wide receiver that the Patriots will have to play. He's top 10 in fantasy points. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how Malcolm Butler can contain DeAndre Hopkins. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this edition of Going for Two. More SportsZone coming to you after this. Hello, welcome back to SportsZone. This is our favorite segment, Thumble, Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down, where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly in the world of sports and the world at large. So we're gonna start with the good. Thumbs up to the New York Jets for finally beating Rex Ryan's Bills. It's been 2 years now. We finally picked up a win. Matt Forte, absolutely killing it. The Color Rush jerseys, thumbs down to the Color Rush jerseys, Thursday night's football thing. The Jets jerseys were obnoxiously white, like shining white. They're not that white, like way too much white. And the Bills jerseys should not have been red, way too much red. Just not a fan of the color scheme. Thumbs down to the United States of America for losing to Team Europe in the World Cup of Hockey. They're not even a real country. And we lost to them. And we outshot them. What are we doing? I expect a better performance tomorrow night against Canada. Thumbs up to the World Cup of Hockey, however. It's really going well. Ratings are through the roof for the NHL. It should be very interesting to see how the rest of it plays out. Games are on ESPN. Thumb down to the New York Yankees because, yes, I called it. They were 2 games back last week. They are now 8 games back in the division. So thumbs up to me for being right with my Yankees baseball analysis because, once again, they have proven that they can win a lot of games but then give it all right back, and we're back where we started. Thumbs up to the Eagles because, they haven't played yet, but they're still 16-0 Super Bowl bound. Even though I'm not an Eagles fan, that's just for you, Deepak. I know you're watching out there. Don't lie to us. Come back sometime. And thumbs up for Cody Cohen, back in action, but thumbs down for Cody Cohen not being able to start this segment. This is our 4th try. Cody's lost it on air. It reminds me of almost as bad as when Vince cried on air. So thumbs down to Vince for crying on the air. Thumbs up to Jake because his fantasy insight last week actually helped me pick up a win this week. Thumbs up to Vikram because I don't have to talk soccer now. It's great. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to turn it over to Jake.
Oh, look at that slide. Nothing but air. All right. Thumbs up to Cody for always being able to make me smile. Thumbs down to Cody for making me smile too much that we weren't able to start the segment and I threw his smiles right back at him. Thumbs up to Jimmy Garoppolo for looking incredible and making me fantasize and salivate at the idea of Joe Thomas, Josh Gordon, the first-round pick. Thumbs down to him getting hurt and making me have to maybe only go for Joe Thomas in the first-round pick. Thumbs up to the impending storm that will be Jacoby Brissett's first start. Thumbs up to the impending storm that will be Julian Edelman coming in the second half to play quarterback. Thumbs down to Ryan for not enjoying my farcical thumbs by glaring at me menacingly. Thumbs up to Ryan for listening to my fantasy advice, because if somebody has to, it should be the other guy on the show. Thumbs up to Kristen for following me on Instagram. Thumbs up to the campaign to get the Cody Cohen show, the real life, going. And that's all I got.
So, hello everyone. Thumbs up to soccer around the world. Thumbs up to Man City and Pep Guardiola. Thumbs down to Manchester United, who have been struggling since the past 3 games. Thumbs up for Barcelona and Real Madrid, who have been flying. Thumbs down to Chelsea, who have been losing and not doing good. And thumbs up to the weather outside. And that's all I got for you now.
Thumbs down to Jacob deGrom's injury. I know we're all really devastated about that. Thumbs up to the rest of the Mets pitchers for really stepping up when they need to. Thumbs up to Curtis Granderson for really heating up with the bat these last few weeks. We really need you, so please keep it going. And thumbs up to the New York Giants for 2 wins in the first 2 weeks of the NFL. And that's all I have.
Hello, American University. You guys miss me? Because I missed you. Okay, here are my thumbs. Thumbs up to the cast of SportsZone. How great are they? They're pretty good. Thumbs up. It's almost that special time of year. Sweater weather. How great is that? You know, everybody with their nice pumpkin spice lattes, wearing their nice sweaters. It's pretty nice. You know, change of the autumn leaves. It's gonna be nice. Really, really nice. Thumbs down for whatever just fell in the studio, but we picked it up. That's called resilience, everybody. Teamwork. That's all it's about. And also, thumbs up for the campaign of ATV trying to give me my own reality show. You know, we call it Fun Never Ends with Cody Cohen. Because who wouldn't want to follow my life? Because in my life, the fun just never ends. Vince?
We're gonna start off with a thumbs down for Ryan for unceremoniously bringing up a crying incident that may or may not have happened in the studio. When you're smacking down and getting raw on SportsZone, things happen, Ryan. So we're just gonna leave that in the past and let bygones be bygones. But sticking with the relevant topic of this show, sports, thumbs up to the Pittsburgh Steelers beating divisional rivals led by the Ginger Ninja, Andy Dalton. We beat them. We did it. I hate the Bengals. I hate them. Thumbs up again. Arsenal beat Hull City and they drew PSG, so it was a good week for Arsenal. Thumbs up to Granit Xhaka scoring a screamer in the 90th minute, then giving the shush to Arsene Wenger and the fans, saying that he probably should be playing more because you spent $35 million on him. But that's another point. And we'll go thumbs down to the weather because Cody's in the studio, so I feel like we all gotta do a Cody's thumbs, and that's all I've got this week.
All right, showtime. I'm going to open with a thumbs up. Thumbs up to Heather O'Reilly of the U.S. Women's National Team. She retired, I believe, during this past week, but she scored a goal and had an assist in her last game, and that's how everyone wants to go out. So congratulations on a career and a nice performance in your last career game. Well done. I will also give a thumbs up because the MLS legend is back. Landon Donovan scored a goal for the Galaxy off the bench, an equalizer, to help them get a draw, actually, the other day, which is interesting. Donovan, of course, retired, I guess, 2 years ago, technically, and decided he didn't like it and got bored, and he's back scoring for the LA Galaxy again. It's nice to see Landon back. I'll give a thumbs up. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I thought looked absolutely outstanding in the Jets' win on Thursday. He only threw 1 touchdown, but 24 of 34, over 300 yards passing. I thought he looked great. Of course, Matt Forte, thumbs up as well for rushing for those 3 touchdowns. So that's always nice to see. Thumbs down to the Cleveland Browns because I don't know if they're the most unlucky team in football or what, but to have RG3 get hurt with a shoulder injury in week 1 and then Josh McCown get hurt with a shoulder injury in week 2, both of them look significant, and so they're rolling with Cody Kessler now, their 3rd string quarterback heading into week 3. So I kind of feel a little bad, actually. It's fun to beat up on the Browns, but boy, they've been bad for a long time, so I kind of feel guilty. I'll jump off Kristen. Thumbs up to the Mets. First wild card spot. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I'll take it. I will take it. I will give a... Do I have any thumbs? Any other thumbs? I don't think so. Thumbs up, Cody's back. We love having Cody. We had a cheap imitation of Cody last week when we had Ryan pretend to be Cody and do his thumbs. Valiant effort, Mr. Siegel. Thumbs down to Deepak, because Deepak told me earlier last week that he was coming to DC over the weekend, and he told me not to edit our show from last week because he wanted to come in and he wanted to edit it. So, and he was going to be here on Saturday. So I said, okay, and I kind of did a little bit of work on it and left most of it for him. And then I came in Saturday night to the studio to see what Deepak had done, and Deepak did literally nothing. You will be able to find the one thing that Deepak added to our episode when you watch it, and that was it. So that put us behind schedule a little bit. So come on, man. If you're going to edit it, do the work. Don't just pretend to do the work. Anywho, I still love you, but I mean, I'm a little hurt that you just didn't put the effort in. I think that's all I got. Our Twitter poll for today, you might have guessed it from what we've been talking about during thumbs. Our Twitter poll for today is, because we were trying to make this pitch to ATV, would you watch a reality show focused around Cody Cohen's life? Yes or no? Find that on Twitter. We'll post it. Answer that question. I really look forward to seeing these answers. Last week's poll was about kickers, so I'm not really actually sure anyone cared, but the votes are in, and Chandler Catanzaro was voted to have a worse performance than Graham Gano. So we moved away from sports for this poll a little bit because we loved Cody, and we love that Cody's back, although he didn't bring us any donuts this week. Maybe next time. Anywho, I will do thank yous. That's it. That's all we got. Vikram, Ryan, Cody, Jake, Kristen, Vince, Viva's in the back. Thanks to Brandon Crayman, who fixed our camera for us and is fixing stuff around the studio now. Thumbs up to everyone at ATV. We love you all. That is all we have, and we will see you next week.